He's a big boy. He's the biggest boy. He's a big boy. Biggest boy.
Here to talk about finances. Remember that time he spent all his money?
Yeah,
Remember that?
I mean, I think I saw him do that last week.
Oh, yeah. That other time where he spent all his money on pizza. Can you believe that? All right. Good video.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a big boy. He's the biggest boy. He's a big boy. Biggest boy. He's a big boy. He's the biggest boy. He's the biggest boy. He's a big boy. He's the biggest
There's some
boy.
decent
He's a
things to
big
talk
boy.
about. I
Biggest
mean,
boy.
No,
He's a big
no,
boy. He's the
no.
biggest boy. He's the biggest boy. He's a big boy. He's the biggest boy. He's a big boy. Biggest boy.
Maybe to pad out the time a little bit, you want to tell us what you do for a living? It's kind of exciting.
yeah, sure. I work at a funeral home. I'm used to seeing assholes with no lives and no lives and no lives, and tonight's no exception. In all seriousness, I work at a financial services company, or software as a service specifically, and I manage an accounting department. It's a smaller company, but I do manage all things accounting. I mean, everything that goes into the books is done by me, is monitored by me. So I pretty much am the accounting department.
You know your stuff. Should probably take an opportunity to preface all this conversation with this is a lot of speculation. We did some research, but when it comes to dollar amounts and SSI and all this, we're doing the best we can every day, but take this with a big old grain of salt.
Are you familiar with what habituation is, the psychological phenomenon?
Ooh, no, that sounds neat.
So what it is essentially is your brain doesn't process stimuli sometimes when it kind of categorizes it as inefficient. And that might not make sense, but the best example is usually you don't hear air conditioner running until it turns off. And that's because you're so accustomed to it going, your brain, it does pick it up, but it just filters it out. And for him, I mean, that's, I think, how you consume his videos. I mean, I'll put his stuff on in the background, I'll be working, really won't hear half the stuff he says, and then randomly you'll hear something along the lines of, yeah, and that's why I got a huge cock. And you're like, hold on, I got to check this out. And I think that's the best way to consume his content.
That's perfect. You're not hanging on every word, but subconsciously, like you described, your brain is ready to flag those little bits that pop out.
We're going to see if we can't chug about 12 of these Doritos Locos tacos.
DoorDash is killing them right now. It's expensive. Let's face it. There's a lot of extra money that goes into it when you order DoorDash. It's a luxury thing. It's not meant to be used every single day. And I think if it were up to him, he would order it as much as possible.
I mean, you're kind of limited to DoorDash when you go through the drive-through window and they say you can't walk up.
Yeah.
Shout out and rest in peace to Mrs. Green. I don't know what she did deserve to be on that staff, but I just feel so bad for that damn praying mantis.
Me too. When I saw it, when he first glued it on there, Mod Podged it, whatever, I really did just feel bad for that little insect.
Who's buying these staffs for these prices?
Yeah.
And it really made me think, is whoever was going to buy that goddamn greasy pan that, you know, he was eating grease out of. I remember that went up to, what, $780?
It was climbing.
And, yeah. I had a stream he went on. He was drunk and he said, or I was just at least hungover, and he said something along the lines of, you ever get drunk and try to eat the grease out of your pan? I talking about.
You ever get so drunk, YouTube, you try to eat the grease out of your pan?
Of course people eat rancid grease that's been building up for months on end. Yeah, just dip your finger in there. You know, with the eBay bids, it's a really common troll tactic to inflate the price with no intention of actually paying. And I think that's why he doesn't really sell stuff on eBay very often. It's just a huge pain in the ass. You have to relist it afterward, do all that. I think that would happen ad nauseum. His spending, it may seem trite, but I'm sure you've heard about the Starbucks effect.
Can't say that I have. What is
That's all right. It to me, there's something about it just seems like really played out and cliche. But the idea of if you buy a cup of coffee from Starbucks every single day, it winds up being this massive monthly expense. It adds up. I feel like that's That's Josh. He buys so many little things that he just consumes usually the day of, and then he's out of money.
I think maybe nowadays it's not as common as it was before, just because it seems like all he spends his money on anymore is just really alcohol and
Doordash.
It's interesting to look at that, he didn't even have a whole lot ever in the past. It was just there's lump sums he would randomly get. I mean, it just seems like with him it's a force of habit. It's always he gets a lump sum of money and then it disappears and he says, "Oh, I'm going to be better about it next time," and then he isn't. And I'm sure you remember the whole how to spend
Yes.
$1,000 in 5 days. I mean, he just blew through that like it was nothing. I don't know how you get that money and then blow through it. And then he was complaining that he didn't know where it went. And it's like, dude.
Am I broke again? Well, I'm not gonna lie, I kinda am. I don't know how the fuck I burned through that money so quickly.
Multiple pizzas, sharing them with other Casperites who kind of begrudgingly were eating his food because it was free.
Fuck this motherfucking food that Josh paid for it, so I'm gonna fucking eat this shit if I like it or not.
Oh, well, hell yeah, man. I appreciate it.
You got a call from Scotty within that time frame.
Yep.
And he said something along the lines of, his tooth hurts, that's not fun. Like, I think Scotty was trying to get him to help with his tooth or whatever. I mean, they know when he has money, and you could tell they're jealous. I could tell that Warlord is just seething with jealousy whenever he sits there and he's like, thanks for the $5. Like, Warlord wants that. I think that's why he's made his own channel and why he makes TikToks and everything, because he really thinks he's going to get that same notoriety.
And it's more complex than just making awful YouTube videos titled Rant or selling crappy wands. It is much more nuanced and deeper. You can't just face value copy Josh and expect the same phenomenon to happen. It's like getting struck by lightning.
He had a video called Pipe Thoughts, and I'm like, dude, you're not even hiding it at this point.
Gonna add like the same misspellings and video response with a C, but no, it's not that easy. I'd hate to have a guy around like that. Everything he's saying, you can't really trust at all. It's just noise.
It's just funny how he believes Scotty so much. I mean, rest in peace to him as well.
Rest in peace, homeboy Scotty. But there was a post he did make where he talked about how he managed to miss a drive-by shooting because he was at
A friend's house.
playing RuneScape. And it's like, oh, wow, you did almost die at one point. You could have been at a place where there was a drive-by, but you were at
a friend's house
playing freaking RuneScape of all things.
Has a bad habit for sure.
Sometimes the regret is apparent right afterward when he was eating those Doritos Locos tacos and it was all done. He very quickly started just being like, oh, it's probably not a good idea to buy all those tacos. We'll get through this. It'll be okay.
It is what it is. I'm selling a $666 staff on Etsy soon enough. And ordering that was a little too soon. But it's okay. You know what? You know what I'm saying, YouTube? Ordering that Taco Bell, it's okay. We're going to get through this.
I mean, he's always like, I'm a great businessman. I run a business. I'm serious. And then it's like he gets all the money and then it's like, I can't ship the wands because I blew my money. And it's like, dude, the price to ship the wands is built into what you're charging.
He's so used to being in the red. Like you said, oh yeah, it'll be positive real soon. And he's ready just to go further into debt if need be. Where do you see his wand business going?
He's moved over from, making a batch of wands and selling it at that $24 each to making a couple wands and selling them at like $300, which, that's great money, but he's making them even less and less.
Yeah.
And on top of that, he's making them less and less because he's not allowed to do his wand business inside. And because I think it's not convenient anymore to him, that's why he's not doing it anymore.
Yeah, I think he may have lost a little bit of the spark, or he's just too drunk all the time to make a big batch. But he's going for smaller quantity, higher margins, which is really risky. The double-edged part of selling them for such ridiculous amounts If this one wand that didn't make it had been underneath the old pricing, it wouldn't be so intimidating to have to raise that money, because it used to be what, $30-$40 back in the day.
I think it was 24, and then it got moved to 31. And then he was saying that his customers were pissed off because it was a 40% increase.
Compared to current day prices, that's pretty damn reasonable. I could see him being able to scrape together 30 odd bucks, because again, $200+ refund looming over him. He does not have the ability to save any money. He can ship one wand to some guy. There could be a pile of people all wanting to be the person, and then just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to dispute this with my credit card company or request a refund because I didn't get it. And, he's not keeping track of his shipping or anything. There's a really interesting parallel with this and the super chat situation, the donations. His email, he put it in there as Gmail. And I can't remember the logistics of it, but because there was a typo in the email address, it was preventing him from fighting chargebacks. So you could charge back a donation easy and do it over and over again, and he refused to fix the typo. And with this, because he hasn't been hanging on to tracking information, he can't prove that he ever sent these things. So I think the technique now is just to order really expensive wands, say they never got it, he won't keep the tracking info, and you're set.
I wouldn't say it's similar to an audit, but essentially on the revenue side of things, and the only reason I'm making this statement is it's very parallel, is they will come in and say, okay, I'm going to grab a transaction. I want to see the authorization to either pull the money or whatever it be it. I want to see where the money was deposited, and I want to see that the service was performed or given. And you have to prove all those things, because if you don't, then then they start to look at it and say, hey, well, did you actually do what you were supposed to? Did you have permission to take this money? And he doesn't follow up with any of that. I mean,
No.
Anyone could get a chargeback for any wand, and I think, like you said, that could be the next scheme for the trolls. I mean, you just get a wand, you put a chargeback, say I didn't get it, and that's it. Call it a day.
I think when you price it so highly, the chance of the buyer being illegitimate goes up so much more.
He's always out of money, and it shouldn't cost that much money to make a wand. I calculated just what I thought it could be, and it all is up for speculation, because, again, I don't know if he uses like a full can of spray paint or this can of spray paint, but I'm assuming he should be making at least, I don't know, like $14 back when it was $24 each.
Yeah.
I think it was 14, and I mean that's pretty decent revenue. But again, they're just painted sticks, so you should be able to make a lot more money on this. So I don't understand how he's always in the negative for making a wand batch. It's just odd.
They would have, of course, there'd be the painted stick, and then copper wire. Mod Podge, for some reason, would be involved. And then lately, shotgun shells, which I guess he just has for some reason. I think with the spray cans, spray paint is really inefficient. You don't get as much as you would think when you're really trying to get something evenly painted. He should just use regular ass paint versus spray paint, because I think he'd get way more mileage out of it.
This is really sold for the convenience, and for him, he needs the convenience, because for him, he can't do things the hard way, which is odd, because he doesn't seem to be able to do a lot of things. And I don't know if you remember, it took him, I think, 3 hours to put that chair together, that desk chair. And he's like, I'm not stupid, I'm not dumb. And then it takes him 3 hours to do it.
He could just have paint cans to dip it into and call it a day, couldn't he?
I think so. I mean, as far as paint, I don't think it would be relatively expensive.
Just
and I
dunk
feel
it.
like it would stick better. Yeah. I mean, spray is really, really hard to get stuff to stick. I mean, you need several of that. And if you just put it into a paint can, I mean, the paint has nowhere to go but on the stick. So I really don't know why it's such a challenge for him.
Freaking paint fumes. Ridiculous. I think it's contributed massively to his brain damage.
I think anyone that knows him knows he doesn't understand the value of money, especially with like those $60 pizzas. He talks about winning the lottery and, what he would do. And he said, right before he got evicted, If I won the lottery, I would walk up to my landlord's desk and slap $1 million on it and say, I want to stay here. That doesn't make any sense. You would spend $1 million to stay in your $500 a month apartment. You really understand the magnitude of what $1 million is at that.
I've really been hoping that he could get a moped or a Vespa or something, some kind of scooter, because I think you can actually get one of those even without a driver's license, as long as it doesn't go fast enough. I mean, ever since he moved, it's a gargantuan walking distance to his usual haunts.
I think that would work out perfectly. I mean, if he doesn't need a license for it and you can paint it black and green, I mean, that's a really good idea.
Yeah, he'd really benefit from it, because I feel for him. If he had something like a scooter, he could just go get it and save himself a lot of money.
Yeah, a moped or something would be great, but it's like him being drunk 24/7 probably would not be a good idea.
He actually did get hit by a car at one point. I just imagine that happening again.
I've been hit by a car driving a scooter at 30 miles per hour. So getting shook around by a mild accident, it's no fun. You question everything. None of my bike accidents have been too terribly bad, but I've been hit by a car before. I went flying off this motorized scooter at 30 miles per hour.
Man, I was doing like the street view recently with some people and looking at the restaurants, and I was actually surprised at the pricing for some of the restaurants there. There's places selling $14, $15 burgers. I didn't expect that for Casper. There's places that I can't believe Josh doesn't go to. Seriously cool bars and restaurants that I'd at least want to be seen going to. It could be once, but I'd want people to see me there, because they're right up Josh's alley. And then there's Josh going to like the dirtiest, cheapest places in Casper.
You looked at like Zillow and pricing for Casper, because I've done that before.
Oh, I should. I imagine it's got to be cheap, right?
It's relatively cheap. I mean, I don't think anything is really inflated higher than it would be. Like if you go to Walmart, the prices I feel like are going to be the same. But rent, he's paying $500-$600. I mean, I looked there, and it's really interesting. There are some places that are small, and there's some places that are small that are going to be overpriced. But last year, before the market really started getting more expensive, I mean, there was like a 3-bedroom apartment for like $1,100.
There can be a huge spectrum of what you can pay. And I mean, for many people, $500-$600 for any kind of joint in San Francisco, that's to live in some guy's living room, and you think you're getting a steal.
You could be like Warlord and have to pay nothing to live. I did a little research on SSI. I think what I had seen was that the maximum he can make as a single individual with his SSI or his tax returns really, is like $780 a month. And when you start looking at what it costs him to live there, now it's $600. He could make out with a little bit more money and have a little bit to put to the side. Well, probably not with his groceries, but he could live straight off of like YouTube revenue or Etsy revenue. He has an aversion to getting a job, and I think it goes past, I can do my own thing. I have my own business. There was that video when he was with Steve, and I think they were in Taco Bell. I think Steve's wife or whoever it was.
The hostage, yeah.
Some lady comes up, and he was talking to her about how he lost his job at Wendy's, and she's like, just apply here. And he just kept making excuses. He's like, I'm not dressed for it, maybe later. He didn't want a new job at that point, but for whatever reason, him and Steve were on the town doing odd jobs, supposedly. And it's like, what did you really do? Because it's just, no one was going to hire you and Steve to do anything.
What is up, Facebook? So I got a hold of my buddy Steve, and he's fine. I don't know why he decided to drink antifreeze, but he only took 3 very, very tiny teaspoons of it, like the teaspoons you get when you measure stuff to cook with.
What his income used to be.
Yeah.
Back when he worked at Wendy's, I was listening to some of the Wendy's saga. It actually gave me direct amounts. He said he would take $250 out of each paycheck because he was paid twice a month. Or he said bi-weekly, but I'm assuming it's twice a month. He put that away for his rent, which was $500. he used to pay 50 every 3 months for internet, but now I think it's 50 or to 60 every month. He also said at some point he was making about 600 every 2 checks. That was originally when I think it started going on the decline. But had that been true, I did the calculation saying if it was 600, I would assume he means after tax, because that's what's printed on the check is after tax. That would assume that if he worked 7 days a week, he'd be averaging about 2.92 hours a day, which would lead me to believe he was only working about 20 hours a week.
I watched a video about group homes recently, and it's basically autistic adults very happily living together. But one aspect of it was they would find them jobs, and a guy, just for example, would clean movie theaters part-time. And that is exactly like Josh cleaning the lobby at Wendy's. It's just kind of a nice little job for maybe a handicapped person to help give them meaning. It brings them happiness. That's what I think of, just a really, really part-time job.
Well, I theorized that the only reason he had that specific job at Wendy's was because they made it for him. So I've
Yes.
never heard of lobby attendant. And then I also started thinking back that was Chris Chan's job as well. I just leads me to believe that they made these jobs just to give them, because I mean, obviously you can't trust him around food. I mean, you've seen the
tea.
fry. I feel like they knew that he was limited as far as his skill set.
It makes me wonder if maybe internally Wendy's or whichever companies might have special programs for hiring special needs people for jobs like that, through just being good natured, or maybe a possible tax break if you hire special needs people. That's kind of a little venue I've never thought about. I do miss the days where he worked at Wendy's. Some really funny stuff happened, and it was good for him. But now, like you were talking about, I think there's a huge aversion to ever working again. Do you have a ideal scenario where if you were in Josh's position, have you thought of ways that you would spend your limited budget to really make the best of it?
Well, I mean, I think it easily goes without saying I wouldn't be spending all the money on the pheromone soap, the pizza, all those things. But as far as his wand business, if he still had that open and running, I would just cut back on what he's using as far as materials, because I don't really think that the copper wire and the leather and all that really make a difference. I think people will buy them if it's just a painted stick. If it comes from him, it's because it comes from him. Most of his money just goes towards a lot of this stupid stuff, and that's really why he's always broke. If he wasn't spending that kind of money, I mean, he still gets that assistance every once in a while from his parents buying groceries. He would have some money.
I was thinking about the ideal spending situation because I've run through it in my brain before. It's kind of a fun game. You get a budget and you have to make it work. The prize is you don't have to work a normal job, which I am terrible about that. I hate 9-to-5 jobs, just like Josh. I have an aversion. And it would involve, of course, food and stuff, rice and beans, bulk food, stuff that you can stretch out. No more alcohol. It's expensive. I mean, just beer, having to buy beer just to go through it in a day. Alcoholics are just forced to become more and more economical with what they buy. I mean, handles of vodka, bum wine, really nasty stuff. It's out of necessity because it is a very expensive habit in the end.
Well, I think the one thing you're underestimating with him is he mixes most of his stuff. You could tell he's very much a lightweight. I mean, as you guys said in the last video, it took him 6 beers to get just wasted with that Dark Plenty stream. And he mixes them really with everything. So he's watering stuff down. So I feel like because he's a lightweight, I mean, that's got to help out with something that make it last longer.
Surprisingly, he hasn't become more tolerant, and that's not a good sign. I think from what I've read, if you become more sensitive to alcohol when you're drinking that much, it can indicate some serious problems with your brain and your organs. But yeah, it doesn't seem to take much. I mean, I know he's got to be drinking on the side outside of his streams, but he can start a stream, be pretty damn coherent, and an hour tops With a few drinks, he's gone. He is totally spent. I would get right back on whatever prescriptions he had back in the day for his Ritalin or Adderall, whatever he was rocking before. I would not be drinking. I would just really make use of whatever stimulants he had. If you have insurance, I'm sure he has on some kind of government or his dad's insurance. It's not that expensive. To go deeper with that, I don't like the idea of recommending anyone break the law as a means of surviving, but if he were to maybe sell a little bit of that to Scotty or Tina, if he had some Adderall or something, probably bring in a decent chunk of money.
I mean, yeah, you can sell it for about $10 a pill.
And that could be a little side hustle as long as he's doing it safely. I would really hate for him to get in trouble with the law over something like that. But he had some pretty good prescriptions and could probably keep getting them with his conditions. I wish he would go the opposite direction when it comes to drinking and depressants and all that stuff that slows him down. When he is cranked up on G Fuel, he just comes to life. Every now and again, he'll get into it. And it's almost like the old days.
I miss those days.
Yeah. Cranked up. This is like basement era. And the videos are still out there where he actually can't get the words out fast enough. I think he was,
I remember that.
yeah, some kind of stimulant pill, and then he would crack open a Monster and take that with it, and he was flying.
And it just kind of mind boggles me that mainstream shit like Justin Bieber and Hannah Montana get all the attention when musicians like Ozzy Osbourne, who are legendary, have better music, can sing, and are actually a lot cooler, and they're not getting as much attention as mainstream shit. It's kind of disappointing, actually.
When SSI is nearly $800 and your rent's only $500, I mean, you can get away with living. I mean, and he doesn't need much to live. I mean, if you were living off that like ramen diet, just food essentially and rent, it wouldn't be very hard. Now, granted, he's got to pay more with his internet bill and all these other things. I mean, and actually going back, how could he save more money? Not falling for this stupid stuff like, what was it, Nugenix, where he was spending like 100 something a month, like.
And they charged him to cancel. That's so funny.
To complete your cancellation, we charge it. Wow. You're going to charge me $37 fucking dollars just to cancel it.
I mean, one, don't fall for the scam, but two, if anything like that tried to charge me for unenrolling, I would say, go to hell, call my bank, credit card company, whatever, and say, listen, I'm disputing this. Do not pay this. The most satisfying thing I ever did, I had a gym membership, and they hate letting you get out of it. They make it a pain in the ass. They want you to walk in, sign a form, at which point they'll take you into a back room and start trying to get you to stay. And I just disputed it with my credit card. And naturally, they cut you off, and you never see them again. Easy. With the way he spends his money, he could afford a really cheap gym membership, and that would do him wonders. I've talked about it so many times. I've wanted to see him lift weights and get strong for ages now, because I think he would be really good at it.
He should be able to afford $10 a month, but knowing how he spends his money, that'd be a challenge for him to have that money. But it would be something to do other than sitting in his apartment all day. I mean, it's got to be boring just sitting there drinking and just getting on YouTube, because I can't imagine what he does when he's not streaming.
I'll bet you that Clint would probably pay for a nice gym membership. If he really believed Josh was going to go, he would probably pay for it.
No, without a doubt. That now that you say that, yeah, definitely.
He would be able to look at beautiful women, because let's face it, there's gorgeous women at the gym. He'd have to, he'd have to hide his boner. It would be impossible. He would get outrageously horny at the gym. I'm sure he would stare. I mean, he already has that problem out in the wild. He has people telling him not to stare. He'd stink. He'd smell really bad. He might listen to music and sing along to it. I could see him doing that and screeching. He is so horned up now, so desperate, so thirsty to see like a woman squatting or something. I think he would probably just like jizz himself. I think he would be at the gym, if anything, just to stare at people. I don't even know if he'd work out that hard, but that would at least get him in the building.
Swiftbucks scam.
Yeah.
That was just inexplicably dumb. I think he was saying it was $2 per click that he would
Yeah,
make.
a stupid number.
I mean, I understand why he fell for it because he falls for it.
He's greedy.
Supposedly, once you get it, you have to put a bank account or a card or something.
That's what
I'm
they were
guessing.
after. Yeah, they were getting really deep into his PayPal under the guise of, well, we need to be able to deposit it. Give us your bank info. I think it's like a gateway. I mean, you give them like just the beginning of it where they can start to make a break. The smallest hole in your security can lead to something gigantic if they just have that little opening.
You keep clicking that link, and literally that's $2 every time you click it. Click. I gotta wonder though, if it was this easy, then you'd think more people would be doing it. But maybe a lot. That's just it. A lot of people. What if it is real? And a lot of people think, well, that just seems too fucking easy, and then they just, they don't do it because it seems too easy. You never know, right? I'm gonna have to get a hold of my account manager and talk to her about deleting it via Skype. I hope we don't start charging my PayPal money to use it if I haven't done any services yet, which I don't think they should. Well, I don't want this charging my PayPal any fucking thing just to have it on here or whatever, so.
That makes me think that I really think if he got a call from the IRS saying that he needs to pay with, like Walmart cards, he would fall for that.
Yeah, overseas scammer person.
Yeah, I mean, old people fall for it, but at the same time, he doesn't understand just these concepts. So I really do think that if you were to, push him and say, hey, we're the IRS and you didn't pay this money, he gets scared. I mean,
it depends on whether or not he would fall back on Clint. With things like taxes, I think he'd just be like, no, that's not for me, that's for daddy. And he'd call him up. But if he were to be the type of personality that hides these things, then he could easily just be like, oh yeah, I'll cover this up, I'll pay them, and they'll leave me alone. Papa Clint will never know about it.
Yeah, his tax information and his SSI goes to Clint anyway. I think that's the best thing that it does, because he would be very much homeless if his dad wasn't, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Clint probably pays for his rent or uses the SSI to pay for his rent. Because at this point, where would he be getting the money? He doesn't make $500 a month at this point.
He needs a grown-ass man managing this stuff. Can't be trusted. Absolutely. Because he wouldn't pay his bills. I know he struggles with the internet bills every now and again, or so he claims. Could be some other weird thing he owes for. But he'll just be like, yeah, no more videos unless I get money for my internet.
Yeah, he'll say, yeah, internet's $50. I don't have that. And then magically has $60 and spends it on a pizza.
Gonna pay my internet bill so I can make videos for my fans, yo. What you gonna say about it? What you know about it? Nothing. Hey, you guys, nothing. You know nothing about it.
The infamous Little Caesars loan, where he wanted a substantial amount of money, even at a predatory money cash advance joint. They looked at him, sized him up, and said, no, you can get $15 and you'll come back with 20.
Now, when I walked into the money place, I thought that I could get a loan for $200, and that's not going to happen. So the most they could give me was $15, and then I owe them $20 on payday. So now I could have gotten me a bottle of alcohol with that $15, but I was kind of hungry. So I'm like, prioritizing. I mean, I got a little bit of food in my apartment, but not a whole lot.
What would cause a place like that to not want to take advantage of them like they normally do?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest the reasons is risk. I mean, when you're loaning money, there's that inherent risk that you're not going to get it back. I think they knew if they were going to loan him that much money, he's never going to get it back. And granted, yeah, he's going to be obligated by the terms of a loan to pay it back, but additionally, it has to do with credit. I mean, Josh has no credit. I mean, there's no way he had a credit card. There's no way that he has credit. So I really don't think they would have given him that kind of money with no credit either.
Just first impression, I really would have thought they'd be happy to have him be accruing interest on something. If they could just have this guy out there that they're always having to collect from. I mean, it's not much different from if he got like a credit card or something, right? They're happy to have people out there who can barely pay the interest on their debt and never actually make progress on what they owe.
I think my favorite thing he did a couple years ago was he got his debit card taken away, and he was really upset. And he said, well, my New Year's resolution was be better with money, so I don't know why my dad's not giving it back.
He just really had it together back in his Wendy's days and Stephanie era. She gave him a lot of credit talking about how he would prioritize certain things like rent and bills and stuff. And then he would just blow all his cash on stupid things. But it wasn't unlike most people you would meet, that kind of spending.
Yeah, I mean, he knew back then. I remember there was a trip that he wanted to go on to, like, New York for some, like, rising musicians or something, and he did the math and said, I'm never going to be able to afford this, and then just didn't do it. I mean, nowadays he would go on a tirade trying to raise money. I mean, he tried to do all that for Ellen, I mean, with the whole charity thing and that.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
They're old dogs.
It was the home for old dogs. When it first started, he made that stipulation of, whoever gives the most will get a free wand. And then when he thought it wasn't going to make the money, he said, never mind. You can't offer something like that and ask someone to spend money and put money into a supposed contest and then go back on it. That actually is illegal. And then when he hit the goal, he started taking the money and saying, well, they hit the goal. These are for me.
Yeah. Yeah. For clarification to those that aren't familiar, he was basically embezzling money from a charity that he was trying to raise money for. It was one of the more scummy things he's ever done. To give Josh credit, he doesn't try to scam people that often or do underhanded things, either because he's too dumb or he still has some kind of moral system. But that one was pretty bad, the Old Dog Foundation.
That's why you never send him money on anything.
Oh, yeah. If you want anything from him and you're paying him for it, expect nothing. If you want him to behave a certain way, don't attach any strings to it. Because honestly, shame on you if you pay him to do anything and you intend to yank the money. If he doesn't do it the way you're thinking, it ain't gonna happen. Nothing goes as planned with him, period.
No, not at all.
Chances are you're gonna get burnt in the process. He'll either intentionally or unintentionally dox you. You'll just get a spotlight on you somehow. It won't end well if you really try to mingle with Josh. Just be warned.
Now that you say that, it reminds me of when he was going through his Etsy and reading the transactions he had of who was buying it. And he was saying, this person from this state. And
yes.
It's dude, you're so dumb.
He doesn't even always intend it to be that way, but he is punishing people who do anything with him. You're going to get it. Do you think if he had an easy chance to make some money, he would take it if it involved scamming someone or doing something kind of sneaky?
Everyone knows that he's scared of getting in trouble and being arrested. If that was out of play, I think it's possible. I think it's definitely possible because he seems to try to bend the rules. And I feel like if he can justify it to himself that it's fine, then he would easily do it.
If it's on the way to his path of least resistance, which he's all about, doing the easiest thing possible, if someone got stepped on in the process, I think he'd be cool with it. He is really scared of the law. You're absolutely right about that. He has been able to save up for things on occasion, which is surprising. He saved up for Bad Company, his shotgun, spent an outrageous amount of money. It's just ironic because he finally saves up his cash for anything, and it's a total waste. It's so he can customize a gun.
He spends a lot more money than he needs to on things that shouldn't cost as much as they do.
That's his MO, is managing to inflate the price of something very ordinary. Most definitely. Oh, and his first guitar, he saved up for that. He had a paper route and whatnot, and then he destroyed it.
That is the end of that guitar. The guitar I busted my ass on a paper route, making sense per paper, getting a paycheck every month is now in pieces.
He's talked about business ideas, of all things. Cobra's Cafe.
Yeah, I remember when he said that it was going to have all of his like food combos and it would be so clean. Health said he would be saying that he was anal about it.
It's really weird to bring that up first thing.
The hands will be so clean, you can eat the grease out of them.
This is definitely a delicious bacon cheeseburger. I would definitely serve this in a restaurant if I had one. This would definitely be a burger on the Cobra's Cafe menu. If I had my own restaurant, I would serve burgers, nachos, fries, and pizza. And that would be it. Just those 4 things. I'd have both Coke and Pepsi products, and I try to have like 44 beers on tap. The chicken Alfredo I made the other day was superb. I would definitely serve that in the Cobra's Cafe. If I had my own restaurant, I call it Cobra's Cafe. And it would be so clean that even the health inspector would say, dude, you're being anal about this shit. God damn.
Speaking of businesses, I do remember one of the ideas was he would make a toy, but he didn't say what it would be. He just said kids love to play with it.
They'd love to play with it. It'd make them so happy. He's mentioned it, I think, a few times over the years, the mystery toy.
See, I wish I could tell you, but he's given us
Nothing.
Nothing about it.
Just how fun it would be. Any kind of schematic. If I could get anything kind of like the picture of his house, his clock tower mansion, it just wind up being a Frisbee or something. But whatever it is, what is this toy?
I got an idea for a toy that children and adults of all ages would enjoy. Although I'm not going to talk about it on YouTube because I don't want no one to steal my idea. I have an idea for a toy that's non-sexual, mind you, but I have an idea for a toy that would be really fun to play with. I just don't have the money to make it.
This would be the biggest money-making route if it would work, if it was legal, and if it would have been safe. But when he talked about the lubricant you would use that would mimic ecstasy and cocaine, and
I create a lube that would be edible, but it comes in a powder and it's activated through liquid. And when it activates, it stimulates, it would mimic the feeling of ecstasy and cocaine while having sex. It mimic those drugs without actually being in your system. So if you thought the KY Hiss and Hers stuff was good, the KY Hiss and Hers would be even better.
Got to combine things. It's got to be a combo. Freaking Stephanie, her and Josh, it keeps coming up that they have these outrageous similarities. They're almost like siblings sometimes. But she also wants to have her own little business restaurant thing like Josh.
I remember hearing about that, yeah.
Dave and Buster's. That is just too weird. I got really mad at Josh. He was showing off his new apartment.
Oh boy. Yeah, what's up, YouTube? How you cool cobras doing? I told you motherfuckers I get a new place, and I wasn't lying.
He was so smug about his new joint, his new furniture. He was in a really good mood, which an ordinary person should not be in a good mood after something like that. They've been evicted and they had to move, which is a pain in the ass. And he was really feeling himself. And I thought a big reason why he probably wasn't feeling as punished is that Clint has enough kind of side money to bail Josh out of this crap. Josh's parents have done pretty well. Clint is a college professor. He was involved in an accident and he got a settlement from that. And then his mom is also involved in education. It's been theorized that they're pulling in pretty good money, especially for Casper. So incredible that he even was able to monetize for as long as he was. I think it's a sign of the times back then. Not like people were politically oriented a different way, but just how more lenient YouTube still was. I mean, there was the adpocalypse and all that, where the really big ones complained. But well after, Josh was still saying some heinous stuff and getting paid.
Surprising he lasted as long as he did.
Yeah, that's the big takeaway, is that he got to kill it for way too long.
When I did the math, anywhere from almost $4,000 to $6,000 this year, he would have been monetized, and that's not including super chats.
That's something I would try so desperately to fix. Possibly even start a new channel and try again for monetization, just to get that back. I've talked about it, but I don't understand why that wasn't priority one for him, getting it back.
He seems to care a lot less about money now. He will be super rude to his viewers. I know they fuck with him and they'll ask him like 30 times, hey, what's your PayPal? But he'll be like, hey, listen, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to tell you again. And it's like, hey, man, these are potential people giving you money.
Definitely used to be a lot more motivated to interact with chat when there was the potential for super chats and stuff. People ask him questions, what have you. But now there's no point in any of it anymore. When he first discovered that he could do super chats, he made his longest stream ever because he was so excited at the idea. It's like rolling dice over and over again, kind of just like a big Skinner box. You don't know when you might get the next super chat, get some more money. But these days, that's gone. That's out of the equation.
He lives in a world where, I think that it's him against the trolls, and he wakes up every day just to pretty much just defy the trolls. And it's sad because it's like, at least it's giving you something to do, but you're getting nothing from that at this point. You make no money off of YouTube.
No money at all. He doesn't build any skills. For being on YouTube for this long, he still only knows how to hit like the start button and when to end it. He doesn't know how to edit or do anything with his videos.
Well, there was that one time that he put the negative filter on, but I think that's
that's as far as he went.
Hello, Douglas. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Snake Bones. Worked very hard on it.
I will be dedicating some time to making sure this year's Halloween stream goes off without a hitch, as well as a couple other projects that have been receiving some neglect. You can still look forward to the next episode of Snake Bones, a history of Cobra-isms.
See you next time, Butt Bunch.